Hey, what is
You're
going
tuned
on?
into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
What's going on, RBLR Nation? You are tuning into the Rays portion of RBLR Sports. I am your host, Zach Blaine, and here with me, the one and only Mr. Ben Whitelaw. How are you doing today, brother?
Hey, good morning, Zach. How's it going?
Oh, it's going. Long night last night, but excited to talk baseball. And actually, we've got somebody else here today. For those of you guys that don't know, this will be my last Rays podcast as a full-time host here. I am jumping over to the RBLR Bucks show. But filling in, you don't have to remember a new first name. Here with us is Mr. Zach Daub. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic. Super excited to be here. Just thought I would make it easier on all of y'all. Just still Zach. It's spelled differently. Not that matters, but make it a little easier for you guys.
Well, it will matter when they go follow you on Twitter at real Zach Daub. That's ZACHDAAB. But yeah, so let's get right into it, guys. I guess the first thing we're gonna go over is the Twitter questions from you, Mr. Ben.
Yeah, we've got two of them this morning, so not too much work here, but that'll be nice because I know we've got kind of a lot planned for our episode today. So first question is from Twitter user Anthony G. His handle is @mustdefeattwin. Don't know what that's about, but okay. He said, "Is this the year the Rays get some primetime broadcasts?"
Probably not. Like, do we ever really get prime time?
I mean, I could see it if, especially if Tyler Glasnow comes back and is pitching really well. I could see, if there's a matchup in New York where he's pitching against Cole, or there's a series with the Mets. So, if it's a Mets or a Yankees game and there's a prime pitching matchup, and I could see maybe you could get flexed to a primetime spot. But other than that, I mean, when do we ever get primetime? Like, ever?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, with the new scheduling, like, there's a chance. I mean, we're going to play every team, basically. Like, there are fewer divisional games. So, like, yeah, the Yankees and Red Sox carry a lot of weight, like, in the broadcast world within our own division. But now we're going to we will see the Dodgers. We will see the Mets. We will see the Cardinals. And probably more of the same, but you never know. Maybe we get more respect this year.
I mean, fingers crossed. I think we deserve it.
Oh, yeah. So next question is from Chris @WumblesWolf. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. He said, with all the discourse from the Rays not signing a bat yet, if you could have one player with no restrictions that plays in the league right now, who would you say and why?
I feel like this is kind of a trap question because if no restrictions could pick whoever we want, I'm either picking Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be tempted to pick Aaron Judge just because he had he's been a little bit more healthy than Trout has been recently, and he's performed at such a high level. I'd be tempted to go that route. Shohei is super enticing just because of the two-way nature, but to me, I would just love someone who I can count on almost every day to go out there and have a decent chance of hitting a home run every time he goes out there. That would be a really nice add to the team.
Yeah. I think another guy who I like, I know that he's not as popular as he was when he was with Washington, but Juan Soto. Really young, really good.
Yeah, I mean, anybody we can lock up for a long time would be nice. But yeah, I would go with Shohei Ohtani. He's the best player in baseball. Nobody can do what he does. So he's two players in one. But I just know that he's gonna get a $50 million contract or something when he's done in LA. So I don't think the Rays would be able to afford that.
Do you think he becomes the highest paid baseball player ever?
Yeah, definitely. I feel pretty good about that. If Aaron Judge, I guess he kind of did, right? He got, didn't he get the biggest contract ever? I didn't pay that much attention.
Yeah, I believe so. I don't remember if because it was Trout previously, wasn't it?
It was at one point. It was Trout, I believe.
So next year it'll be Ohtani or whenever he becomes a free agent.
Right.
And still 0 playoff wins for that Angels.
Yeah, I mean, it takes more than two players to make a team, but Yeah, they've got two of the best right now in the game.
That's fair.
But yeah, that does it for all of our Twitter questions. So thank you guys for sending those in. I know we usually get more, but this actually works out for us because we have a lot to go over. But if you do have questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, constructive criticism, you can keep to yourself. But anything else, we'll talk about it. You could follow us at RBLR Sports or tweet at us individually. And yeah, let us know what you think. So thank you all for sending those in.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys for sending those in. And I guess to start off after that, we can go into any of the headlines that we got this week, or really recently. I think it was yesterday. We got all the arbitration stuff. Well, the arbitration stuff.
Yeah, bunch of numbers, dollar signs. I'm not going to pretend like I've been sitting in on all these hearings, but the Rays had 14 players to deal with in this setting, and they made deals with 7 of them, and the other 7 are going to possibly go to arbitration hearings, which is the most in team history according to Neil Solon. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I mean, we've got the guys. So the guys that did settle already are Sean Armstrong, Randy Arozarena, Jalen Beeks, Christian Bethancourt, Yanni Chirinos, Andrew Kittredge, and Francisco Mejia. The guys that could go to a hearing are Jason Adam, Yandy Diaz, Colin Poche, Pete Fairbanks, Harold Ramirez, Jeffrey Springs, and Ryan Thompson. So we'll see. I mean, they could still settle between now and the deadline, but between now and like mid-February is when all the hearings are going to start taking place and all that stuff. So these guys are going to get paid eventually. We just don't really know what they'll get paid yet.
Yeah, now I did have a question for you guys because I think it came out. I didn't look at everyone's. When I was looking, all I saw was that Randy had agreed to a contract. Do you guys feel that I would believe it was $4.15 million is a low price for him?
Absolutely. I think that's an absolute steal for a 2020 guy who could be, he could be, if he plays to his fullest potential, he could be a 30-30 guy easily. And like to get that for $4.5 million, I think is a huge steal. And I'm a little surprised that I'm hoping that he will continue to, not like be like demanding an extension or anything, demanding more money and causing, a scene. I don't feel like we never really had the issues like that, from the Rays, and I hope that we never do. I would really like to see him get an extension sometime in the future. I know there's some talk about, whenever a Rays player that has very talented gets towards the end of their, arbitration and they're looking to test free agency, a lot of times the Rays will move on from that player. But I really would like to see him get an extension because I feel like he's part of the core of the success of this team. So I'd really like to see him get an extension sometime this season.
Yeah, I mean, he's, according to Fangraphs, in their value, like what he would be worth in free agency, over the past 2 years, Randy has been worth $52 million. So the 4.5, like that, I would take that all day. Like 52 million.
Yeah.
Like he was worth 21.9 million last year. And then in 2021, he was worth like 30 million. So he fell off just a little bit, but we kind of saw that in his performance, from 21 to 22. But still, like a $25 million a year player that you're getting for $4 million, that's great. I mean, free agency is always going to cost a little bit more, but still, like, he's vastly underpaid, and that's a fantastic deal for the Rays. But also, Randy is a millionaire now, so good for him.
Yeah, truly
deserves it.
Millionaire. Yeah.
Congratulations on being more successful than me.
Marginally.
Yeah, just a little bit. But like I said, that was the only real headline that I had seen. I didn't even see that we signed 7 players when I was looking yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, they got half of it done, and hopefully they'll get the other half done sooner rather than later. But either way, it'll all be settled like before spring training starts. Because they have it set up that way. I know last year it wasn't, and there were some hearings that went on with other teams during the season, which was kind of awkward. But that was because of the lockout, and we don't have to deal with that this year.
Thankfully.
Yeah, right. Thank God.
But yeah, I mean, the other thing that's happening starting tomorrow is the international signing window opens up. which like we won't really see the impact of that for like 8 years. But yeah, I mean, it's always kind of fun to see like which 16-year-old gets brought into the organization. So.
Yeah, and the Rays are always pretty active in that market. I think I saw a stat that we have like 6-point-something million to spend on international free agents, and I imagine that the Rays will definitely be active because they have been basically the last several years have been very active. So it's always fun to see like what could the future of the Rays look like in 8 years. Because as much as we're excited about the core that we have now, it's always kind of fun to keep looking out like what's it going to look like in 10 years, and those are kind of these signings that are happening now are kind of what are the Rays going to look like in 10 years? Who's going to be the next cornerstone?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, we have the like in the top tier of international money to spend.
Yes, I think so.
So, I mean, it could be interesting, if not instantly noticeable. It at least could be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Excuse me. All right, so I guess we can get into our topics if you guys are ready for that. If we don't have anything else,
that's all I got, brother.
Okay, cool. So you want to do? I know we're doing catchers today. We're going to kind of break down the catching situation, what we like, dislike, all that stuff. We want to start with Bethancourt, or?
I mean, yeah, I'm cool with that.
Okay, cool. Who had Bethancourt? I forgot. I know it wasn't me. Okay.
That was me.
Zach was.
It was one of the Zachs for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bethancourt is a guy who came in after not playing Major League Baseball. They technically played in 2017, but he played like 8 games in 2017. So I don't even know if we really count that. Technically hasn't seen a Major League field since 2017. And came in and played relatively decent last year. We got him at the trade deadline, so not someone who we saw all season, but in 44 games with us, I mean, he hit in 7 home runs, which was his career high in the majors, and just all around played good defense and has one of the strongest arms from a catcher. Which is nice to see. So it's someone who I'm excited for, and if you guys have any questions, will gladly take them. Hopefully they're not super stat specific because I know you've been, but I am very excited for him next season.
Yeah, me too. What's his shoe size? That's my first question.
13.
Okay, I'll write that down.
Fake it till you make it, baby.
Do you think? I was gonna say. Do you think?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Perfect. Do you think that he sees equal platoon time next year going forward? Do you think he sees more time than the other catchers on the roster?
So right now, if the roster stays the way it is, with him and Mejia being the 2 primary major league catchers for Tampa, I see him getting more playing time than last year. I think he'll be a 70-30 guy. Maybe not quite that much. It might be closer to 60-40. But I do think that he's our starting catcher, and on like the opening day roster, he's our starter. If I had to predict playing time this year.
Well, why is he the starter and not Mejia?
I think all around defensively, he's a better catcher as far as framing, and he seems, and again, I'm saying seems because we haven't really seen Mejia as a full-time guy. So I'm saying seems like he's got more power potential than Mejia does, in my opinion.
Yeah, just touching on that power potential thing, Bethancourt had a 69th percentile extra base hit rate, which was fantastic. That was one of the top 5 on the team. Which isn't saying much because Bethancourt, because the Rays as a whole kind of struggled on offense last year, but he was one of their better power hitters, and he had an 84th percentile barrel rate. So he was, top 20% in the league and barreling the baseball. But as a catcher, that doesn't really happen that much. Like, catchers typically aren't where you find a lot of offense. So yeah, he's got some serious power. His exit velocity on fly balls was 93.9 miles an hour, 78th percentile. So when he hits a fly ball, he does it because he means to, and he usually hits them really well. So yeah, he just hits the ball extremely hard all the time, and it's really great to see that, especially from a position that's usually like a defense first spot. But even then, like you said, like his pop time is great, 96 percentile. Framing is okay. I mean, it could be better, but it improved a lot once he joined the Rays.
Yeah, and I think something interesting with Bethancourt is if he, I mean, I know that it's not necessarily like the easiest thing in the world to do, but he's hitting to center field 51.8 in Tampa 51.8% of the time. If he could either pull or oppo hit a little more, I think that gives us more opportunity for home runs as well. I mean, obviously, like it's a shorter distance, so it seems a little bit easier. But if it's not maybe right up the middle on fly balls, I think we have a chance of seeing more than 7 home runs from him this year too. Well, yeah. So that's
what do we dislike about him? What could he do better? I know you just mentioned he's just kind of hitting the ball into the field instead of over the fence, and I wish every player would just hit the ball over the fence every time. But what could he do better? I guess in the other parts of his game.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily how I meant it, but I see where you're coming from. Yeah, hit it over the fence, not into the field. Realistically, I think his framing could be better, and until we have robo-umps, I think that framing is going to be important for a catcher, and I think that's going to be what separates him from Mejia, is if he can get better at framing, because like we already talked about, his pop time is good, his throwdown time is good. Offensively, he's decent for a catcher, so I think that if he can work on framing, then I think that's the only spot that I dislike him, and I'm putting that in quotes because I don't dislike him.
Well, and just to add in on the robo-ump stuff, they're actually doing that in every AAA ballpark this year, so we could realistically see robo-umps as early as 2024 in the major leagues. Yeah. I don't think that'll happen because the umpires union is really powerful. And Major League Baseball is slow moving on a lot of things and pretty complacent about stuff. But, 2024, 2025, we could see robo-umps, and that's pretty cool because guys like Bethancourt and Mejia, their value does go up because they're not the best framers, but they both have cannons. And I know that Bethancourt was actually the hardest throwing catcher in baseball last year. So with the rule changes and then robo-umps possibly coming in, like, managing the run game is going to be more important, and that's something that he could theoretically be better at. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I also feel like it's important to touch on, not only is he a good catcher, but he also throws a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. Like, that's insane to me that he is a guy who at one point was primarily a relief pitcher in the minors for San Diego. So it's just – he has the potential to help us out when we get into those 11-1, 13-1 games.
I kind of was expecting to see him at some point during that playoff series in Cleveland. I was like, it was Bethancourt trotting out here eventually. Like,
yeah. Well, once we got rid of Phillips, it was like he's our new two-way star.
Yeah,
but yeah, so, I mean that is all.
I mean that's the likes, dislikes, and I know the projections are like kind of the same on him as he was last year. But yeah, what do we think he's going to do? Is he going to finish the season as the number one catcher? I know we talked about him probably getting the bulk of the playing time to begin with. Do you think the Rays look to upgrade a catcher throughout the season? What's your take on, what it could look like by October?
So that was what I was going to say. I think if we don't upgrade at all, then yes, he'll be our number one guy all season. That's where I get confused. Not confused, but just like not sure, because catcher is a position that we need improvement on. As much as I like Bethancourt, there's a reason why he didn't play in the league from 2017 until last year. So I do think that we need to improve upon it, and I think that that's one of the positions that we could potentially improve on at the trade deadline. So I think him being the number one pitcher or number one catcher through the whole season depends on what we do at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, I agree. I think, not to, spoil anything for what I'm going to have to say about Mejia, but I agree that I think Bethancourt should be the starter throughout the season. And, it's tough because it's tough to say who's going to be available from the catching position at the deadline. Does Sean Murphy become back available again? How are the Phillies playing? Is Real Muto available? I have no idea who's going to be available from a catching perspective at the deadline. So it's hard to say if there's going to be an upgrade, because catcher is a tough position to upgrade at. Because to be honest, when you look across the league, a lot of people's catching positions looks like our catching positions.
Yeah,
it's hard to find, because catcher is such a difficult position to play. It's hard to find players that give an incredible amount of value from an offensive and defensive perspective. So, and when those guys do exist, teams are not, they're not likely to part with that player because they are kind of, a unicorn. So it may be tough to upgrade from Bethancourt, but I think I'm not, as much as I would like to upgrade, I'm not going to be too upset if we don't, because I do think he is a good option.
Yeah. I mean, I second that completely. I feel like if we're stuck, and again, putting that in quotes, if we're stuck with him all season, I'm not upset about it. I think that he is a more than capable starting catcher in the league. I just think that if there is a Real Muto or Murphy, I don't think Murphy becomes available because he, if I'm not mistaken, signed a contract when he got to Atlanta. I could be wrong though, but I do think that if one of them become available or someone like that become available, then we try and make a trade. But if not, then I'm happy where we're at with Bethancourt as our guy.
Yeah, well, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're ready to move on to Mejia if you guys are good. You don't have anything else on Bethancourt?
Yeah, nope, I'm all good. Here comes Zach's first section on the show.
Good luck.
Yeah. So Mejia, he has been with the organization now for 2 years, was previously with Cleveland and with San Diego before he came over in 2021 to the Rays. And he, he's been a streaky player. That's kind of what when I was looking at his statistics, especially if you look at like month to month statistics for him over his time with the Rays, there's a lot of streakiness in his game. He's had some months where he's got an OPS above 1,000. And there was a couple of months towards the beginning of this last season where he was hitting really well, and he's playing at a level where you're like, wow, is he the starting catcher? And then he just cratered the last couple months of the season in his offensive production. And he, when you're looking for the positives about him, he does have, generally he hits the ball pretty consistently as far as contact. He's not really a big power guy, which is, kind of what I think for me is what I would like to see from the catcher position, some power. He doesn't have a whole lot of power. The most home runs he's ever hit in the season is 10. And that was actually several years ago. And like the last 2 seasons, he's only hit 6 home runs. Now, to be fair, he's only, he's gotten about 84, 85, 90 games of playing time for the last 2 seasons. So it's not like he's playing every day. And that definitely, impacts his ability to succeed as far as, getting in a groove, consistency and all of that stuff. But, I feel like there was an opportunity for Mejia with Zunino going down to kind of become the starting catcher. Like there was an opportunity for him to really play into that role. And for a little bit, I kind of thought he was going to, and then it just didn't happen, and Bethancourt came in and kind of took a lot of those, starting spots. And I don't think it was unfair for Bethancourt to get those spots based on how Mejia was playing. I want to see Mejia succeed. I'm just not sure I'm not sure that they're, the Rays are willing to give him the sort of consistent at bats he might need to realistically improve over a season. I don't know. So I would like to see him improve, but right now I really can't, in good conscience say, yeah, Mejia should be the starting catcher. It just doesn't really seem like that's where he's at right now.
Well, what would it look like to you if he were to improve? Like what do you want him to start doing?
So what I would like to see him start doing a little bit more is, I think when he's at his best, he is hitting for average with some power in there, because last season he kind of didn't really do much of either. He was, his OPS sitting below 700. He was 247 batting average and wasn't hitting for a whole lot of power. So I think the funny thing is, I think if you look at his statistics for the last season, I think he was trying to sell out for power more, and it just wasn't necessarily working. His chase rate went up a lot and with a very low chase contact. So he was swinging at a lot of pitches that were out of the zone. He has some of the most unfortunate swings at balls behind him that he has unfortunately been on Pitching Ninja a couple too many times over the last season. So I think I think he maybe had heard that people were saying you need to swing, you need to try to have some more power in your game. And I think he maybe has been swinging a little too free. So I think he needs to improve on plate discipline. And I think that would be if he can improve on the plate discipline, because he's not really seeing a lot of pitches per plate appearance. He's in like middle of the pack in Major League Baseball. I think if he could improve that a little bit, because he doesn't walk at all, and that's the other thing. I think if he could walk a little bit more, I think that would help him a lot. Because just getting on base a little bit more, making yourself more valuable, especially if he's going to be down in the lineup. If you could get on base a couple times towards the end of the lineup and leave some guys on for the top of the lineup to come around, I think that would be a really valuable role for him to slot into.
Yeah, I think the swing decisions are a feature and not really a bug. I know it's like not good to be swinging at, what was it, 52.9% of pitches outside of the zone. That's the worst in Major League Baseball by quite a lot.
A little high.
Yeah, not ideal.
But I think the Rays are trying to make him into a BABIP kind of guy. And I'll touch on that in just a second when I have that pulled up. Okay, so he's got a below average, like 290-ish BABIP for his career, but his 50-game rolling average has been like creeping up on that, like as his time with the Rays has gone on. So like he's swinging it a lot, yes, but he also makes contact at a pretty decent rate. And he's got a decent line drive swing, and something he does really well is like he limits his pop-ups. He has a really consistent launch angle. Like it's not like the optimal launch angle for home runs or whatever, but it's like it's optimized for line drive really, and it's kind of similar to Tim Anderson, who is like a BABIP king really, where they're just constantly hitting the ball like these soft medium line drives kind of all over the field. And I know that because he's a switch hitter, he kind of has a lot more to deal with, like working on his swing. But as he continues to get more playing time, I know he probably won't get the bulk of it, competing with Bethancourt here. But the shift band is going to help him from the left side. I'm just excited to see what's happening with his batting average on balls in play, because it's weirdly going up despite like all this swinging he's doing, but it's kind of like intentional. Like he's not, being told one thing and thinking another. He's just having fun out there, and it's starting to kind of work for him because he really does have a really strong hit tool. And he had I think it was like a 52 game hit streak in the minors. Like he can hit the ball to get on base. So I'm not really concerned about the walk rates, but it's interesting where he's going with this, because the Rays have never like had a BABIP guy. I know Aranda can kind of do it. And he's, a bit more established in that because Mejia is just now starting to do it. But yeah, it's going to be fun to see where it goes, because with the shift band and, figuring out and getting those consistent launch angles, he's starting to figure it out. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on, we've talked about him offensively. What are some things defensively, good, bad?
Yeah, I think that the good is the arm, like we've talked about. He has a cannon. Bethancourt and Mejia both have a cannon. He has some fantastic throws down to second that we've seen throughout the season, where he's just gunning guys out. And again, I think that's where, like we've been talking about, when we get to the robo-ump stage, I think him just, being able to sit back there and gun guys down, I think is a role that he could definitely play. The framing is not amazing, although I will say, like, that when you look at the metrics, they don't grade him out super well on framing, but I feel like he's gotten better at framing over the years. Like I remember when he was first coming up, we're always saying, man, he just cannot frame. But the more I've watched in the last couple of seasons, I think he's become more familiar with the pitching staff and all the crazy, pitches that get thrown by our guys. I have seen him steal some strikes on a consistent basis. So I would say that, I don't think I'm ready, especially if this robo ump thing gets pushed out at all, which it probably will because of the ump union. I'm not ready to give up on him as a framer and as a defensive catcher. I think he is making improvements, and I think he's working at it, and I can see the progress on that. So, I don't think he's as good as Bethancourt right now, but I do think it's something that he's actively working on, and I think he will get better.
Yeah, definitely. He was the 5th hardest throwing catcher in baseball last year, so he's got a cannon. Pop times have improved, and his framing did improve too. Like you said, I know there's some independent like metrics on Twitter that I've seen where the second half of last year, specifically like the last month and a half of the season, Mejia was a really good framer. And something I like about his framing that's kind of been consistent all year is that he actually complements Bethancourt really well. Like they're a really good framing duo. So Mejia actually has like above average rates and like the tops and the bottom of the zone. So he's really good with working with guys who like to throw north south with their pitches, like a fastball curveball type thing. And then Bethancourt is actually, really good east to west. Like he's got some really good framing percentages on like the sides of the strike zone. So he's good with like the sinker slider types. So yeah, I mean, it depends on the pitcher and like, who needs rest and stuff, but they've got 2 different framing styles, but they're both like, getting better or already decent at controlling the run game, even though it's usually mostly on the pitcher. But yeah, I mean, we've got 2 capable major league catchers, and it's pretty exciting how, they're both growing and improving, even though they're, not super young in their careers. And yeah, I think this is a good situation, like, compared to other teams, like you said earlier, where everybody's kind of in the same boat. Like they usually have one good catcher and then a guy who can, defend well so he doesn't end up shooting the team in the foot. But these are 2 guys who can kind of defend well in complementary styles, and they can hit the ball a little bit too. Last thing on Mejia that I have is his extra base hit percentage. Do you guys know who the top 3 from 2022 are on the Rays and extra base hit percentage?
I feel like Bethancourt's up there. No, I feel like Randy's got to be up there.
Mm-hmm. Randy's number 1 on the team.
Probably Yandy too, I would say. Maybe.
No,
I was gonna say lower. Taylor Walls.
I wish. No, it's Randy Paredes. So Randy is in the 89th percentile. He's first on the team. Isaac Paredes, 84th percentile, second on the team. Francisco Mejia, 83rd percentile, third on the team. He doesn't hit a ton of home runs, but he gets a lot of those line drive doubles, like down the first base, down the third base line. Like he does have some power, but it's really just because he's not hitting the ball over the fence. He's hitting it to the gaps. And sometimes that's just as valuable as a home run. Like you got runners on first and second, you hit a double down the line. If it's anybody but like Yandy and Choi at first base, they're probably going to score on those doubles. So, yeah, I mean, I like the power that he brings. It's just a different kind of power than Bethancourt's, where Bethancourt is like barreling balls to the wall. Mejia is like slashing things down the line, and he's pretty good against lefties. So I think he's going to get the short side of that platoon.
And Mejia's fast for a catcher too. Like his base running ability, I really like.
Yeah, I think him and Bethancourt are both like sprint speed wise. I think they're both pretty far above average. I haven't checked recently, but I know Bethancourt, like he can literally play corner outfield.
And he has in his career. I think that before we did this show, before like looking deep into all of our catchers, I was far more worried than I should have been. Like once I looked into it, I felt much more comfortable than I did, 3 weeks ago with us not getting Murphy. Like I would have loved Murphy, but the more that I think into it and look into it, like I think we're going to be okay at catcher this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially if you compare our catcher position to, like you guys have been saying, to other teams across the league, I think a lot of teams would be ecstatic to have our catcher position. And I think both of these catchers also, especially Mejia, I think have room to grow, and improve over the season too. So like, I think we could be better by the end of the season at catcher now than we are now, and without adding anyone. I think Mejia could improve over the season and we could be better by the end of the season. I think that's, a definite possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel comfortable with this situation too. And anybody that's listening, if you want to feel extra comfortable, sitting at home on the couch watching the games, you can go to shop.rblrsports.com, purchase some clothing, some shirts. I think we just got shirts, but who knows? Maybe we'll get some onesies in. or like footy
Socks.
pajamas, whatever, socks, all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, we love the liking and subscribing. That's great. But if you really want to help us out, head over to shop.rblrsports.com. One of the Zachs is going to give you the promo code. I don't know which one, but you better listen because one of them is going to give it to you.
I will go ahead and give it to you guys. That promo code is Flappy, FLAPPY. If you put that in, you will get 10% off of your order, no matter how much your order is. So the more you buy, the more you save. I know we say that every time. And I will say, eventually you're going to see some of the promo pictures that we have. It is so cool to be over here and see this.
It is pretty cool, and it's cool that it covers up some of our faces too, so I can like pick my nose real quick and like not be on camera.
A little break.
Whenever you want to pick your nose or any of that.
Yeah, but if you need something to wipe your boogers on, head over to shop.rblrsports.com.
Exactly. I don't care what you do with the shirt once you get it. Once you get it, it's yours. But just buy it. You need some shop rags. That way works for that too.
Definitely.
So
I'm ready to go to Pinto if you guys are.
Yep. I was going to say I think we're ready for you, Mr. Ben Whitelaw.
Okay, cool. I love Rene Pinto. He's one of my favorite catchers in the organization. I don't think he's going to play that much this year unless either something really good or really bad happens in the catching. So I mean, if it's a really good thing, it means it's because he hit for like the Triple Crown in AAA. But if it's really bad, it means someone is either injured or had like 7 kids or something, and they've got to take like an extended paternity leave. But yeah, what did you guys like about Pinto in 2022?
So you want me to be honest?
Yeah.
I didn't watch very much Pinto.
No, nobody did.
Yeah, so I would be lying to you if I gave you positives or negatives. And I don't want to do that to the fans.
I will say that the few times I did see him, I was sort of like, oh, this guy could probably play eventually when he gets a little bit more seasoning. Like he's got some things I like to see. He's got some good defensive abilities. He can hit the ball a little bit. Like, okay, I could see where he's coming from. And then, he was, a rookie in Major League Baseball and had a couple of really bad games. Like, oh yeah, so he probably should go back down and just chill out for a little bit. But I think I could, the potential I think was visible when the few times that he was up here, but he definitely like this, you could also see he needed more seasoning.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's 26. He was a rookie catcher last year. 26 is pretty young for a catcher. It's really hard to develop that skill set quickly, but his defensive skills were really what carried him to the majors. He had the best pop time in the organization last year, like across, Major League Baseball to the complex league. Like he had the best pop time, and he actually had the second best pop time in Major League Baseball last year, right behind JT Real Muto off by like 0.05 seconds. So he doesn't have the strongest arm. He's got a solid, above average arm, but his exchange, like his quick release, like he is like a catcher by trade. Like that is his bread and butter. So good back there defensively, fantastic at blocking balls in the dirt. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the tallest guy. He's like 5'10", but he's a little bit. He definitely shops in like the husky section, I want to say.
He's a thick boy.
he can move. He can move back there. He's really, really solid defensively. So, yeah, I mean, I'm really excited with what he does there, but he's also improving with the bat. He has a little bit of pop in the minors. He was pretty decent. But in my WADS stat that I made up a little while ago, which measures growth from season to season, he was in the 67th percentile. So from his AAA season in 2021 to his AAA season in 2022, he improved, and the WRC plus went down, but the run environment changed and the quality of pitching changed, but he's growing. So I think, he might be a year or two away from being a solid major league contributor. But like Zach with an H said, we saw flashes of that. Like he was, capable at certain situations. He hit the ball pretty well a couple of times. There was like an RBI single up the middle that he hit one time that I remember. I was like, okay, like he didn't get ahead of himself. He just put his head down, got the bat through the ball, and he can execute a game plan up there. He's not like completely lost. I know swing and miss was a bit of an issue, but that's going to happen with inconsistent playing time and when you're a rookie. So, yeah, those were some things I kind of liked, some dislikes, but I'm really encouraged by what we saw so far from him.
So with him, you mentioned 26 being still relatively young for a catcher. At what point does his development and age, when does that need to happen? Like, at what age do you think we need to have him at the MLB and his development needs to progress?
I think whenever the Rays run out of major league ready catchers, like, I don't think there's a need to rush him. Like, Bethancourt and Mejia are both arbitration guys. Like, they're not going anywhere unless there's a trade. They're both pretty solid and honestly still developing, like we said before. I don't think the catching situation is bad. I mean, it could be better, but they're 3 catchers deep and all 3 of them like do something well. And I mean, Pinto is going to be the 3rd catcher, but he's not a bad 3rd option. He would be a 2nd option on a lot of teams right now.
Yeah, I could see that.
Especially with that defense, like we talked about, a lot of teams have the defensive specialist as their, 2nd catcher. Pinto basically fits that mold exactly.
Yeah, he's perfect for that. So, yeah, I'm not really concerned if somebody goes down with an injury or if he, earns his own playing time. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for Pinto. It's really not a lot to say. I think it is interesting. He's got since 2021 in the minors, he's got a 338 BABIP, which he's not fast. He strikes out a bunch. I mean, not a bunch, but, above average clip. So it's interesting, but I looked into it a little bit more, and he does kind of do the same thing that Mejia is starting to do, where he has a surprisingly consistent launch angle. It's not great, and it's not going to be like, anywhere near the top of the league, I don't think ever, because he's not that great of a hitter, but he does it at an above average rate. And that's kind of interesting because it kind of goes back to that point where I said he executes a game plan in the box. And like when he wants to hit a line drive, he'll occasionally hit that line drive. And when he wants to hit the ball to the wall, he'll occasionally do that. So good line drive, good fly ball rates, limits pop-ups. He does a lot of BABIP things, fairly well. So I'm just excited to see him take that next step next year. Maybe we see him a bit more in the majors, maybe not. Either way, though, I think he's going to be more ready than he was last year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that it's, like I said earlier, I wasn't very excited about our catching room prior to researching for this episode. But the more that I look into it, the more that I'm like, all right, I think we might be set. I think we're good. Like, I don't think we need that Sean Murphy right now, no matter how much offense he gives us. I don't think we need him at this point. I think that we can definitely handle, if not excel, in the catching position this year.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at the positions we need to upgrade, catching is not that high on the list. And I think that there's not really any need to devote resources to this position when I think we are going to be league average to above league average at that position throughout, on both defensively and offensively throughout the season. So, there's no need to overspend, which is probably why we didn't go and get a guy like Sean Murphy, because the front office knows better than the people on Twitter the capabilities of our catching position and what we can be comfortable with going into the next season.
Those keyboard warriors, they know their shit.
No offense, people on Twitter, but I'm just being real. Though I saw a lot of the offseason is over when Sean Murphy went to the Braves, and I was like, I don't think the season's over just because we didn't get a really good catcher, but I don't think that season's over.
Who would have ever tweeted something like that? I was one of them. I'm not
naming any names. I mean, that's,
at Zach Blaine, RBLR, he was one of them. That jerk off. I was so vocal. Like I said, in my defense, I did not take a deep dive into the catching situation, and I should have, because I would not have been as vocal as I was. I thought Murphy to Tampa was a done deal. Like at the time, I didn't even know the Braves were in on him. Who needs him when you've got Darno, who I think is playing very good?
Darno.
I missed Arnaud so much.
I miss Travis Arnaud.
But it just felt like when they traded him to Atlanta and I saw the package, everyone's like, oh, it's so much. Well, I mean, it was a lot, but it wasn't a lot for one team. It was a lot for two teams. So I felt like we could have been in on that. And it hurt at first, but looking at it today, I'm like, all right, I'm kind of glad that we didn't give up Taj Bradley or Jonathan Aranda for someone who I think only makes us marginally better.
Yeah, I mean, he's not like, I mean, he is a really good player, but like you got to give up a lot to get him. And the catching situation isn't terrible. Like it could use an upgrade, but it's not terrible to roll with what we have right now. So yeah,
I agree 100%. So I think that's all we've got for our player reviews, unless anyone has anything else they want to add.
No, I'm good, but we did just get another Twitter thing. If you guys want to cover that real quick before we wrap up with our
sure.
miscellaneous news and stuff. At Jimmy Peep said he thinks a trade for CJ Cron would be beneficial. He's a strong DH and first base bat. What do you guys think of trading for CJ Cron from the Rockies?
Wasn't he on?
I literally just got this. Yeah, he used to play. He
used to play for us. I love CJ Cron. I liked him when he was here. I would not be opposed to that. I think he plays a good first base. I mean, he's not like an all-star first baseman, but I think he plays a good first base, and I think that he's a power bat. I'd be very happy with CJ Cron.
Yeah, I agree. I was sad when he left. When I was kind of really getting into, baseball and the Rays fandom, he was kind of a player that I really latched onto and was really a big fan of his power and his demeanor at the plate. He's got a fun swing and a fun batting stance. And I was sad to see him go. I'd love to see him back. Again, the number, he's playing in cores, so the numbers are a little inflated, but I do think that he would be a good power bat to add. If I don't know, the thing about it too is I don't know what he would cost right now because he's played so well the last few seasons. Like, what is he going to want? The Rockies are, they are such a weird organization from a top-down perspective, like what they want and what they're willing to give up and not give up. They're so inconsistent. I have no idea what we would get from them, like what they would want, just because I have no read on the Rockies organization more than almost any other team in baseball. So, but I think he would be a very fun ad, like a trade deadline acquisition. He'd be a very fun ad to the team.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a right-handed bat, so like, where's he going to play? Is he going to take at bats from Yandy? Is he going to take at bats from Paredes? What do you guys, if the Rays were to acquire him, what do you think? Because I don't really want him taking at bats from either of them. Yeah,
you go. I'll let you go ahead and go first, Zach.
Yeah, I think that's it's funny because I was getting gassed up on that, and then you said we got to take it bats from Yandy and Paredes, and I was like, I don't really want to do that. I love Isaac Paredes. He's one of the players that I am the most excited to watch this season because I just think his potential is through the roof. And to be honest, like I think that Paredes can provide the same, if not better, production than like CJ Cron at his peak, and I think he can get there this year. And yeah, I mean, when you put it like that, like. It's tough because, because then who are you DHing? Like, I don't know. It could get tough to, piecemeal out the at-bats. And that's where it gets tough when we talk about adding to the team. Like, who are we taking up? Who can we add that is such a significant upgrade from the players who we are currently giving at-bats to that it's worth it? Like, who is so much better than, Yandy Diaz or Isaac Paredes or who, or Brandon Lau. There's very few people I think they're better than Brandon Lau, but like who is such a significant upgrade that it's worth taking at bats away from them? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's CJ Cron though. I just pulled up his home and away splits. Echoers home, he's got a 141 WRC plus. Guess his WRC plus on away games.
I would venture to say he's under 100.
85.
Yeah, I was gonna say 98.
So home, he's got. Oh, hold on. It's being weird. It's lagging. I just had it. Home, he's got a 141 WRC plus, so pretty great, like I said. Away, it's 85 right on. So, like,
he was cheating. There's no way he was cheating.
I would screen share if I could. I promise.
I mean, but, like, you'd be acquiring a below league average bat. Like, yeah, he's got, like, over 50 home runs over the last 2 years, but, like, It's Coors Field, and he's been like, I think a three F4 total over the last 2 years. Like Yandy did that in 1 year. So I'm good on CJ Cron. I'll pass. Coors Field is a demon though. Oh my gosh, they probably help so many guys in arbitration.
Oh yeah,
like
100%.
over there, like your offensive numbers, like Trevor Story was great, and then he comes to Boston, and he's still pretty good because he's got the green monster there. But Trevor Story not playing at Coors or Fenway he's not that good. He's kind of fake.
Nolan is really good though. Nolan Arenado is good anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right, well, I mean, I think that's kind of all we've got for that. Now, I do want to real quick before we get into miscellaneous news and ending the show. I feel like we didn't touch enough on the fact that we got a brand new host, and I feel like we got to get to know Mr. Zach Daub a little bit better.
Sure, why not? I'm happy to be known.
There we go. So basically, man, what got you into Rays baseball?
So when I was a kid, my sort of sports fandom was directly tied to what my dad was into. And as a kid, my dad was really into football and basically football. And so we didn't watch a whole lot of other sports. He was sort of a passive Orioles fan because he lived in Maryland during, the Cal Ripken Jr. days and all of that. And then, the Orioles were kind of bad for several years and then again for several years. So he wasn't a huge fan of he wasn't a huge baseball fan. So I wasn't really a big baseball fan until when I moved overseas for a little while, and I actually, in a search to find something American, there was a baseball league over there that I started playing in, and I really enjoyed playing baseball. And I still didn't watch it too much because, again, I was living in a time zone where it was 7 hours of difference. And so, like, I would stay up and watch, football games because that was once a week. But, like, staying up to watch a baseball game every day of the week till, like, 3 in the morning was, like, not sustainable. So I wasn't really as big of a baseball fan. And until one summer, I spent the summer with my grandfather who lives in Tampa. And when I was living with him for a couple of weeks, every night we would sit down and watch the Rays game. And about the first inning, it would be fairly positive, and then about the 7th inning, he would be calling everybody on the field a bum. And by the 8th, by the middle of the 8th inning, he was ready to turn the game off and go to bed. And I was like, "Oh, I guess we don't like baseball anymore." And then the next night, it was right back in the exact same spot, do the exact same thing over again, basically regardless of how the game was going. And that was during the Corey Dickerson era of Rays baseball. So it was a lot of I have weird players that I associate with the eras. I don't think anybody else associates Corey Dickerson with an era of baseball, but I do. But because I thought he was a fun player. But like the Jake Odorizzi era, if we remember that era. And so it was a rough era. But also fun. I thought it was fun. And so I really, at that time I was like, okay, this is kind of, in a way it was a little bit of a weird ritual he was doing, but it was also a lot of fun. So then I sort of got really into it over that time. I really became a fan of players like Chris Archer, Kevin Kiermaier. I just really started loving watching them play. And then I just sort of slowly got more into the team and started getting into the metrics behind it, because when I played baseball, I was a first baseman and relief pitcher, and so I love watching pitching. I love pitching and watching it. So I got really into like looking into the deeper numbers of like what makes pitchers good. And I was like, man, I wish I had some of this stuff when I was a kid. I could have, thrown more than just one pitch. There was like all these, so I really enjoy watching all of that. And so, when I go watch a baseball game, a lot of times my friends are annoyed at me because I want to watch every single pitch, because I'm literally sitting there thinking, all right, what's he going to throw next? What's he going to throw next? Is he going to throw this? And I like trying to predict the next pitch he's going to throw. So that's where my fandom comes from. And I'm just really passionate about the team. I think there's a lot of success on the horizon. And I'm just excited to see where it goes and to enjoy that journey with all of y'all.
I like that answer.
Yeah, nice. Who's your favorite Rays player of all time, and then who is your favorite current Rays player like right now?
Favorite Rays player of all time, and this is a probably unique pick. The player that I enjoy watching the most is Chris Archer. He was my favorite pitcher when when I started becoming a fan, I own a Chris Archer jersey, which I was very difficult to track down. They don't make those anymore, obviously. And I loved watching him pitch, his flair, his style. And I was, really excited when we brought him back. And then when he basically got hurt immediately, I was like, that's really depressing. And he was, he's just a fun player to watch. And Kevin Kiermaier is also right up there. I am definitely on the, if anyone's curious, I am on the KK to the Hall of Fame bandwagon 100%. I'm right. I am like the number 2, person on there. Ben's probably number 1. You're right
setting
there.
Twitter
I'm
up right now.
I'm right there. And of all, of current player is probably Brandon Lau, because I think he's the best hitter on the team. And I think this team's like long-term success goes as Brandon Lau goes. And it may seem weird to say that because we have a guy named Wander Franco who plays on this team as well. But I think, when Brandon Lau is playing at his best, he provides lineup protection and also just, how dangerous he is in the lineup creates an environment where the other players on the team can succeed at a very high level. And I think that some of the inability to perform offensively of these last, end of last season is directly tied to the fact that our best hitter was not available for that entire stretch. And I think if he had been available, it would have been a different scene. So I think Brandon's my favorite current player.
I think it's so wild how, I feel like every Rays fan is so much higher on Lau than I am. I hate that I can't get on the train like everyone else does. But
get on. It's not too late.
Well, going over to the Bucks show, I feel like it might be too late. I don't want to be like a bandwagon jumper or anything. But no, so favorite, I guess, to follow up on that question, favorite baseball player in general, doesn't have to be on the Rays. Current baseball player, sorry.
Favorite current baseball player to watch. I love watching Nolan Arenado play baseball.
Okay.
We played against them last season, and I think we ended up winning the game, but there was like an extra inning situation where he made this play at third base that no other human being can make, where he was running down the field back across his body. It was a phenomenal play. And I just think I just love watching him play. He's just super fun to watch play. And he's a great hitter as well. I love great defensive highlights are fun to watch for me anyway.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I like defense a lot too. I think that I was, I don't say traumatized, but I molded by the Rays teams of the past where defense and pitching were the focus. Offense was an afterthought, really. So anytime there's a 1-1 game, I'm like, oh, this is the best game I've ever watched in my life. So I like those things a lot. I like the defense, and yeah, it's just growing up a Rays fan, I guess. I know a couple other people are like that too, from what I've seen on Twitter and stuff.
It's 100% like that, because I'll watch a baseball game. Michaela will be my wife will be in there, and she's like, "This is such a boring game," and I'm like, "No, this is one of the best games you could ever watch." And I think it just comes from growing up a Rays fan and being stuck with, we're scoring 5 runs tops in a game, usually. So it's up until recently anyway. So it's 1-1 games. This is a great pitching duel. I love this. If you asked me 10 years ago, before I was actually a Rays fan, if I liked watching pitching duels, no, I like seeing the 15-10 games. This is crazy. But I think growing up a Rays fan kind of leads you to be a defensive fan as over anything else.
Yeah, I think we have really good pitchers in our history, and not all of them are the names that have been known across the league. But when you look at a lot of the guys who are, been around for a while and Rays fandom, they've been some really good pitchers, and that's been fun to watch too. We have, in my opinion, the best, or if not the best, probably top 2 starting rotation in baseball right now. And I think it's going to be super fun to watch this season. There may be some, I think this is a year where if we are in low scoring games, I think we're going to win a lot of those, because I think we're going to be able to score enough to back up the pitching, which I think is not going to allow a lot of runs this year.
All right. Yeah, no, that sounds pretty good. Last couple of things here before we sign off. Junior Caminero, again, Australian Baseball League. He had a 2-hit day yesterday, 3-hit day today, including a team-leading 11th home run. He's the king of Australia. Spring training stuff is going to happen like mid-February. Bunch of dates because the World Baseball Classic is mixing things up a bit. But just know mid-February is kind of like the next checkpoint. So, yeah. King Caminero. That sounds pretty good. That's a good nickname.
That's a good nickname. When he gets to the show, that's the nickname.
King Caminero.
We're pointing it here right now.
That's got to be in the episode title or description. So King Caminero. Write that down.
Well, guys, I guess that's technically all we really got this episode. Thank you guys all for listening and for giving us your time. And from me individually, thank you guys for helping me grow as a podcaster, as a host. I appreciate it. And please come over and listen to the Bucks podcast, because that's going to be my new full-time gig. And Ben, thank you for bearing with me, sticking it out with me. I know the first few episodes were a little rough. And Zach, thank you for coming along and replacing me. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you guys so much for that. And to you guys listening, you guys are the reason why we do this, especially me. I love the interaction. I appreciate you guys tuning in and listening every week. If we could ask you guys to do just one more thing for us, that would be go follow, like, wherever you're listening to this, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music. Give us a follow and a like on there, and then go over to your social media. It doesn't take anything. It's free. Go over there and follow us. Instagram, Twitter, everything is at RBLR Sports. And the last thing, just share this with a friend. I know Ben always says it. I don't care if you're just making fun of us. Share this with a friend, man.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah, exactly. And so with that being said, for the last time, as an RBLR Rays host, can I get a big go Rays from all you guys? Go Rays.
Go Rays.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.